Hey there, guys. Got a really good question here from one of the high opinion, low commitment people that I love getting the comments from these people. I do like it. I'm kind of geared towards the people that are training, that are trying to get better at shooting, that are, maybe they're dry firing on a regular basis, or they're going to the range, once a week and shooting, or, they're trying to figure out like what gear setup they want to use, whatever. That kind of thing. But I do enjoy getting the comments from the people that have very strong opinions, but are not really doing a whole lot of training. And that's obvious from just reading their comments, which is a lot of fun. So I'll give it a read and then we'll parse through it. All right. This is a comment on one of the red dot tip videos I just put up. Hey, at 425, you state the size of the dot affects how apparent the red dot is. From the last few videos, you stated over and over that anyone who needs to find the dot is inexperienced and a bad shooter. That's not really what I said exactly, but anyway. Am I to assume, too, that you believe a red dot being more apparent is bad, and anyone who wants something to be more apparent is inexperienced and bad shooter? All of this without seeing any of these commenters shoot. Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it? Kind of like looking at whoever this guy is, Jim Frick's golf swing and concluding his odd swing makes him inexperienced and bad shooter, or looking at Eric Graffel's handgun grip and without seeing him shoot determine that he is inexperienced and bad shooter because of his particular grip. Good. Now, this is one of those, I get a lot of comments from people like this. It's like, you read this and there's like, this guy doesn't really know what he's talking about, and he's wants to be offended by the things that I'm saying. And I appreciate that because I articulate things a certain way a lot of times to elicit these reactions from people. I like drawing fire from these people. So one thing that I've said pretty consistently before is if people are like, oh, I need a bigger red dot because that helps me find the dot sooner. It's like, okay, so what's actually happening there, because I've seen this many, many times, what's happening there is the person does not understand the concept of an index or has not developed one. And then they're drawing their pistol, or they're, bringing it over to acquire it on acquire the target. Okay, gun comes over. They don't have that index, so they got to move the gun around a little bit to find the dot. Okay, now they find the dot. Now they're looking at the dot. Now they put the dot where they want to go and they shoot. Now, this is not the way that well-trained or experienced people do it. It is just not the process that they go through. They're going to have that developed index, look at a spot, the gun goes there. They're going to have that quick confirmation to confirm, yep, the dot is in fact where I think it is, and then shoot. Now, I articulated this way, hey, people that are doing this, they're bad. Now, for one, that's to try to help them. To say, hey, if you're conceptualizing it this way, this is bad and this is why this is bad. And you experience people just they don't articulate things this way. They don't conceptualize it that way. And that's just true. But I like drawing fire from these people because you read through there and you're like, yep, this guy's getting offended. He's starting to get emotional because he knows that this applies to him. Now, let's keep going with this. Am I to assume, too, that you believe a red dot being more apparent is bad, and anyone who wants something to be more apparent is inexperienced and a bad shooter? It's no, I didn't say that. Actually, what I would expect from an experienced shooter, or if I'm having this conversation with somebody who's experienced, they might say, hey, I have an astigmatism, so I like the 6 MOA dot because I can run it a little dimmer, and it's still kind of a crisp around the outsides, and it's the size I like, and, at least the way that presents itself to me, so it's a little bit bigger thing, but a little bit dimmer. I like the way that presents, so it's it helps me stay target focused, but I still have really good awareness of the dot. The way that got articulated, I'd be yep, okay, this guy probably understands what's happening. Whereas to me, I would say, hey, I like a smaller dot, but I still like it to be bright and really apparent. I want to read it both ways, so that's why lately I found the 2 MOA green really interesting. For that reason, I can run it a little dimmer, but because it's green, it's kind of jumping out at me. But it's small. It's 2 MOA, which I prefer. Okay, so you can see it's the conversation is different. It's not hey, if it's brighter and more apparent, that's bad. That's not what's being said. I mean, as people describe their preferences, you can see, okay, they understand bigger and brighter are different things. They understand Like if it's brighter and bigger, it's like if it's more apparent, that's not necessarily better, because what I want to do is I want to be aware of the sight, but I also want to be focused on the target and not have the awareness of the sight turn into focus on the sight. So the way that people discuss these concepts, you can really tell if they understand them. Anyway, let's keep going. All of this is without seeing any of these commenters shoot. Yes, dude. And that's the best part, is like the way that people talk about these things, it tells you so much about what they're doing. Like if somebody's discussing training and they're like, hey, Ben, like I changed my grip the way you said and my group's really shrunk. It's just kind of like the way that guy said that, like I appreciate the comment. He's changing, he's getting better. But when somebody's training like in the practical way that I do it or I advocate it, it'd be on multiple targets at different distances and difficulties and all sorts of different target presentations. Like I don't measure success by group size, right? People that are training in that practical way don't talk about like, oh, I'm shooting and my groups get better. They just don't talk that way, right? So when you hear that from someone, it's telling like, okay, we're not doing the same things, right? And this is, again, this is obvious from just the language that people use. But if you spend more time on the internet developing opinions that they're very strong and you're very committed to, but not actually doing training, this stuff is not obvious to you. Okay, this is kind of like anyone looking at Jim Furyk's golf swing and concluding his odd swing makes him inexperienced and a bad shooter. Or look at Eric Graffel's handgun grip without seeing him shoot, determine that he's inexperienced and a bad shooter because of his particular grip. Like, actually, the more time I spend doing this, the less dogmatic I am about exactly what people are doing. Like, I don't look at a guy with their finger on the trigger guard and say, hey, that's wrong. I don't do that. Like, I don't think that at all. If a guy says to me, though, however, if he's like, oh, well, I was doing the Graffel grip, the last few months, but I'm going to give the Vogel grip a try. For a whole host of reasons, like when I hear something like that, I would key in on that and be like, this guy's probably a dipshit. It's just what I would think, like without needing to hear more. And I'm like, the amount of certainty that guy's a dipshit just from that one comment, we're at 95%. Like I would be like pretty sure that this guy doesn't know what's going on, and the conversation wouldn't have to go on a lot longer to be like, okay, this guy has no clue. This is kind of what I enjoy about doing the YouTube channel, is you will elicit comments from people that spend 90% of their time on the internet, like pontificating about this stuff, or again, developing really strong opinions, but 10% of their time actually doing it. And for a lot of us, like that relationship is reversed. So for me, if I'm out on the range, 8 hours in a day, and I spend 10 minutes recording a YouTube video at the end of that, like the split in my time is very obvious. And it is a good time. I think one of the funniest things that I saw, like, because my friends and I and a lot of the industry people, some people that would surprise you, like, are watching what's going on with this channel, and they're like, I see what you're doing there, Ben. I see what you're doing. It's very funny. One of the funniest things I saw was when I was trashing the acro sites a couple months ago, maybe, and I saw one of the guys put a comment up on the channel, was like, hey, yep, I run a little selection course. I bought like 60 of these, and he had some percentage of them that failed, like a third of them failed over the course of a month, which I read that. And I'm like, yep, that's consistent with what I've seen and what I've heard. That is consistent. And I look at the name on the comment, I'm like, pretty sure I know who that guy is. Like, that is very, very funny. It's very funny if you know who that guy is. And then I saw him just getting, like, there's guys replying to the comment, like, you're lying, like, that's not true, like, you didn't do that. And I'm just kind of like, oh, if you guys knew who that was, you would be dying. That's what's so fun about the channel. It is genuinely amusing to elicit these comments and antagonize these people. I mean, admittedly, I'm antagonizing these people, saying it's like, hey, they don't know what they're talking about or they're bad. It's like, because there's a lot of people that are serious about this and doing it all the time, but it's hard. It's hard for inexperienced people to suss that out sometimes. So we are having fun with it. That is a true thing. Anyway, I hope to continue to draw fire from the guys who have very strong opinions and very little commitment to training. I do enjoy that, and I think that's going to continue.